Resourceful Designer, episode 149, starting a design business from scratch.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He likes his drinking water at room temperature, Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for plugging me into your ears, turning on your car speakers or your home speakers or wherever you're listening. I just want to say thank you for taking a little bit of time to listen to me as we discuss our design business. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to share what my strategy would be if I had to start my design business from scratch in today's market. I'm also going to share a tip of the week. I'm going to mention a long sought after feature for Adobe Illustrator that you may not know is now available to you, before ending the episode with Steve's question about virtual assistants. Now, I've been up to a lot this week. I had a lot of projects on the go. A couple of the fun ones, I got to draw up and design some real estate maps. They develop subdivisions and have a lot of land that they're dividing up, and they asked me to draw up these maps. They have official plans that an architect or whoever drew up, but they wanted maps for their website and that, so I used those plans and drew up some maps. So that was kind of fun. So I got to work on an employee handbook for a big client of mine. So that was a nice book. Got to format it and do some design for it, design the cover, and had a lot of fun with that one. And I also had the first monthly video chat in the Resourceful Designer community. I think it went really well. We talked about the pros and cons of freelancing for design agencies, as well as we had a really good discussion on presenting your ideas to clients. Specifically, if you're working with logos, how many different logo variations should you present to a client, and how should you go about presenting those? If you have multiple ideas, if you want to show them 2 different logos or 3 different logos, do you show them all at once? Do you show them one at a time? So we had a really good discussion about that. So that was the first of what's going to be a regular monthly video chat in the Resourceful Designer community. And these videos will be available to anybody who is in the community to look back on later. Now, the community is closed right now, but it will be opening up again in the near future if you'd like to join, if you haven't done so already. And now I'd like to share that, I was going to say, I don't know if you consider this a tip or a resource of the week, but what I want to talk about is the trim view option in Adobe Illustrator. Now, if you're a longtime Illustrator user, you know that, first of all, Illustrator has what's called an artboard. That's where you do your actual designs. You can make it whatever size you want, the size of a postcard, size of a sheet of paper, size of whatever, a billboard. And you have the artboard, and then you have that gray area outside the artboard. Well, for the longest time, whenever you draw something on the artboard, if it bypassed onto the gray area, it would just hang off there on the side. And if you wanted to see just your design without that other stuff, you'd either have to make a mask or somehow cover up the part outside the artboard. I remember doing that, just creating boxes, coloring them the same color as the gray background and positioning them so that they would block anything. And that was a real pain. Well, finally, it looks like at the end of 2018 at some point, and I didn't even know this was there until I stumbled upon it, Adobe introduced the trim view feature. You can get to it in Adobe Illustrator by going to the view menu, and I think it's the 3rd or 4th option down. It's called trim view. And when you put trim view on, everything that is off your artboard, everything that would be on top of the gray area around your artboard disappears. So you only see your artboard. And it makes it so much easier to see things like whether you're too close to the edge or if your positioning is right without all the other distractions. So this is a feature. I know people have been asking for it for a long time, ever since Illustrator's been around. And I didn't even know they had introduced it. And I posted in the Facebook group about this. And from the reaction I got from my posting, it seems like a lot of other people didn't know this feature was there as well. So it seems like it's a new feature that Adobe introduced just recently in the last few months, but it didn't get a lot of fanfare along with everything else. It was just an update, and it was one of the things that was added that they didn't really mention. So I thought I'd share it with you. If you do use Illustrator, just have a look. It's under the view menu. And again, it's the, 3, 4, 5 items down from the top. It's called trim view. If you turn that on, anything that's on your or off of the artboard in the gray area around the artboard disappears. So I hope you find that useful. And now, starting a design business from scratch. So I started this podcast almost 3.5 years ago. And I think the Resourceful Designer Facebook group was almost as long as that. I know I started it up a little bit after the podcast started, but it's been a couple of years since the Facebook group's been around. And one of the struggles that I see most often within my audience is the struggle involved with starting and, of course, growing a new design business. Now, in the past 148 podcast episodes, and through countless conversations in the Facebook group, I've shared a ton of advice on how and what I think, and just tips on starting and growing a design business. And of course, that's advice that I've garnered through my own experience running my business and stuff I've learned from others who have also gone through similar things. And over the years, I've received plenty of messages from listeners like you thanking me for my advice, telling me how I've helped them start their own design business. Some of them even credit me with giving them the courage to leave their full-time job in order to pursue their dream. And I love that. I love that I'm helping people out with their design business. That was the whole reason I started this podcast. I wanted to share a little bit of my success, a little bit of my knowledge with anybody who could benefit from it. But in looking at all these people, looking at all the questions I get from the podcast and discussions in the Facebook group, I realized that I'm actually far removed from where a lot of my listeners are, and possibly you are right now. I have a successful design business. I don't need to go looking for clients. Clients come to me. I'm at the point in my career when I could turn down any project that I don't feel like working on, or I could turn down any client that I don't want to work with. Heck, I don't even have a website for my own business. I've been in business for 14 years. I've never had a website for my business. For 14 years, my website has said coming soon. And yet, I'm prospering. And the reason I'm prospering is because I'm 14 years into my own business here. Plus, I have another 15 years prior to that working at the print shop. And all that time has helped me to build my brand, to build my reputation, and to build the client loyalty that I talk so often about on this podcast. Now, I know what I did to get to where I am today. And I share a lot of that with you on the podcast and in the Facebook group. But I also realized that I started at a time when social media wasn't a common phrase. Most people hadn't even heard of Facebook. YouTube was just getting off the ground and wouldn't become mainstream for several years. And if you brought up the word podcast, you'd be met with a blank stare because nobody knew what a podcast was. Things were very different back then, and this is only 14 years ago. At that time, I never dreamed that I would have clients all over the US. I'd have clients in Scotland, I'd have clients in Australia, Hong Kong, and many more places around the world. Back then, I was simply hoping to get a handful of good local clients to keep me busy. And I built my business on that principle. But what about today? I've been thinking recently, what would I do if I had to start my design business from scratch today without the benefits of 30 years experience behind me? And that thought process that I've been mulling over in my head for a while now, I want to share with you. Now, keep in mind that I'm talking about growing my design business, not about becoming a designer or growing as a designer. I'm presuming that as I'm starting my business today, I already know how to design. So here are the steps. What I would do if I was fresh today, I am starting a design business. Let's say I was working somewhere and I don't know, through downsizing or through whatever, bankruptcy or merger or whatever, I got let go. I no longer have a job. I have to start a design business, or I want to start a design business today on my own. These are the steps I would do to get the ball rolling, to start my way towards success and get back to the point where I currently am with my business. So step one, I would build a website. I know, ironic. I don't actually have a website for my business, but if I was starting today, the very first thing I would do was build myself a website. A website is crucial to growing your business in today's market. It is the needed hub, if you will, for lack of a better term. It's the needed hub that you use to direct potential clients to. It's where people can go to get to know you, know your services, and know what you offer. Now, if I was doing this, I would start off small. I would get something that looks good, but keep it to the, they call it the MVP, minimal viable product. I would build just what I need. I wouldn't worry about building the perfect website, which we know you can't happen. Last week's episode was progress over perfection. Well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's more, I would just get the website up there. I would make it look good, but I wouldn't worry about stuff because a website is an ongoing thing. You can build on it as time goes. I would just get a website up as soon as possible. The next step, step number 2, would be to reach out to family and friends. Now, I would spread the word that I'm starting a design business. I would contact my aunts, my uncles. I would reach out to cousins, even the ones I haven't seen in years. Maybe the last time I saw them was 10 years ago at so-and-so's wedding. Well, I would reach out to them and let them know what I'm up to. Now, I wouldn't be doing this in order to try to get business from them. Although, if I did get business from them, that would be nice. And even though they're family, I would still try to make some money off of them, might offer them a little bit of a discount because they are family, but I would still treat this as a business. But what I would be doing was reaching out to them just to get the word out, because you never know when somebody in your family may know somebody else who needs your services. And family members are much more inclined to refer a fellow family member. Now, I would also do the same thing, just going through my contact list, whatever my list of contacts that I have, my Facebook friends and my personal contact list for email, and I would send them a message. Because I'm trying to build a business, I wouldn't care if I hadn't spoken to them since high school or whatever. Again, it's all about spreading the word. The more people who know that I'm running a design business, the better the chances of me picking up clients. So I would go through Facebook and send a direct message to people, maybe saying something like, I don't know, "Hi, Lisa. It's been a while, hasn't it? I hope life's treating you well. The reason I'm reaching out to you is to let you know that I've started a graphic and web design business. Here's my website. If you or anyone you know needs help with design, I'd be grateful if you could pass on my name. Thanks and take care, Mark." And that would be it. I might not have spoken with these people for 20 years, but it's just a matter of reaching out to them like this. Whatever they do with that information is not my problem. It's just reaching out. They might go, Mark, really? I don't care about him. But you never know when a week later might be in conversation with somebody and they say, "I really need a logo. Do you know a designer?" And they might go, this Mark guy, I haven't talked to him in 20 years, but he reached out to me last week to say he started a design business. I think I have his website here somewhere. Let me give it to you. So you never know. So reach out to friends and family. That's the second step I would do after building a website. Now, the third thing I would do is I would join my Chamber of Commerce. Now, I talked about Chamber of Commerce specifically in episode 141 of the podcast. You can get to it at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 141. But that is actually the next step I would do. And not only would I join the chamber, but I would set up a meeting right away with whoever is the director. There's always a director of the Chamber of Commerce. I would ask to have a meeting with them just to get to know them. And I would inquire if, first of all, if they, the chamber itself, have any needs. Do they have any events or do they have any projects that are coming up that may require design? And I would offer my services. Once that meeting was done, just to get them to know me, then I would actually go through the membership directory, like I explained in episode 141, and reach out to each and every person in that directory. I would introduce myself to them, send them an email because in the directory, all their contact information is there. And once again, I would ask them to pass on my name if they know anyone who could use my services. The next thing I would do after that is personally visit every printer, screen printer, design agency, sign company, trophy shop, embroidery shop, and let all these places know what it is I do. A lot of these places, there's some printers that don't actually have a full-fledged design department. There's some trophy shops that can do minor things, but they might need somebody to do some more elaborate. Same thing with embroidery shops or sign agencies. You'd be amazed at how many sign companies don't actually have a designer on staff. So I would reach out to all these places, not asking if they need any design work. Maybe they do, but offering your services in case they need your help on a project they're working on. Now, the next step I would do would be to contact my local tourism bureau. Doesn't matter where you live, somebody nearby is promoting tourism. Tourism is a major, major revenue service for a lot of businesses. And it doesn't matter how small your community is, there's somebody there that is trying to attract visitors to bring their money in. Well, I would reach out to the local tourism bureau and ask if they need my help with anything. Maybe they need help promoting the local area or promoting certain things. Maybe they have members, because most tourism bureaus will have members. They'll have a membership, and those members pay a fee for the tourism bureau to promote them. Just because you have, some sort of event, or you have a venue that you want visitors to come to, just because you have that doesn't mean the tourism bureau will automatically promote it. You usually have to become a member of the tourism bureau in order to have your information shared. So sometimes the tourism bureau has a member that might need design services, so they could refer you to that. Then I would also look at their membership list. I would look at the tourism bureau's, sometimes they'll have a website with a list of upcoming events, and I would contact those people. If there's some sort of festival, maybe there's a music festival scheduled towards the end of the year, that's 6, 8, 9 months away. Contact the people involved with the festival and offer your services to them. Maybe they haven't got to the point yet where they need to design their posters and everything. So I would look at the list of members for the tourism bureau, because those people need marketing material. They need websites, they need flyers, they need posters, because they're trying to attract people to their businesses. Now, I would do a similar thing and reach out to theater companies. Theater companies are always putting on productions, big ones, small ones, doesn't matter, and those productions need to be advertised. The only way the theater company could stay in business is by filling the seats whenever they put on a play. And they fill the seats by advertising the productions they're putting on. So I would reach out to theater companies and find out, what productions do you have coming up? Do you need any design work? Do you need the poster design? Do you need something done with the website? Now, in some cases, they might have somebody for the website, but you never know with the poster. They might be willing to give somebody new a try. So reach out to theater companies. Now, the next thing I would do, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, is I would attend as many networking events, trade shows, fairs, get-togethers, theater productions, anything where there is a crowd of people, and I would walk around with a t-shirt that read, "Hi, I'm a graphic designer. Let's talk." This worked for me. When I first started off my business, I used this strategy, and I did get a lot of attention. I got a lot of people coming up to me and asking me about my business, asking about my services, asking for business cards. Now, yes, that was 14 years ago, but I know this strategy still works because Dajanière sent me a photo of herself in her own. She designed herself I'm a graphic designer, let's talk tee. And she told me how she wore that t-shirt to a women's empowerment conference in Detroit, and people were going up to her and inquiring about her services. So 14 years later, this strategy still works. People are curious. Just wear a t-shirt that says, "I'm a graphic designer," or "I'm a web designer, let's talk." And people will come up to you. It worked for me 14 years ago, and it works for Dajanière today. Give it a shot. Now, after all of this, then it gets down to the nitty-gritty. I would start going door to door. I would pick a specific business area in my town. I wouldn't just say, okay, I'm going to do the whole town. I would pick maybe one street that has a bunch of businesses on it. I would do some research on the businesses there. Do they have websites? What sort of marketing are they doing? I'll just find out whatever I can. And then I would approach them. Just walk in the door, introduce myself, give a business card, and ask them if they need any help improving their marketing material or their website. Now, I would specifically target any business that has an unsecured website. That's any business that you go to their website and it's HTTP and not HTTPS. I would go specifically to them because I think that's a great conversation starter. If you go in and tell them that their website's not secure, and because it's not secure, they're actually losing some of their ranking status in Google, and they're falling down on the search ranks because Google is now ranking secured sites higher. And it also means that when people visit their website using certain browsers, they get a message saying that the site is not secure. Sometimes that conversation alone is enough to get people to start thinking, oh, I should be updating my website. And since you're the one bringing it to them, and maybe their previous web designer has never mentioned it, they might be inclined to listen to you, what you have to say, and give you a chance. So I would go door to door to businesses asking about stuff and specifically looking at websites to see if they're secure or not. And once I'm done with a certain area of town, then I would move on to another, and I would keep moving on to another. And the final thing that I think I would do right now, if I was starting my business right now, the final thing would be to try to leverage LinkedIn. I know there are a lot of designers out there who swear by Instagram. Some of them use Behance. And of course, there's the other social media like Twitter and Facebook. But the problem is, most people visit social media sites to get out of that whole business mindset. They're there for the social connections, the camaraderie, to connect with friends. People don't go on Twitter, or most people don't go on Facebook because they're looking for business. It's a getaway. That is, except for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very business-oriented social platform. Most people that go to LinkedIn are doing it because they have a business mindset. They're going there to conduct business. I recently heard that 40% of LinkedIn users earn $70,000 a year or more. 40% of them. I'd want a piece of that pie. And as far as business goes, that's the social media platform I would want to go after. Now, how would I leverage LinkedIn? Well, I would start off, first of all, by making sure that my LinkedIn profile was very well put together and talked about my business front and center and everything I can offer. Then I would start off by writing a few short articles. They don't have to be long, but I'd write a few short articles about how design affects business decisions. I wouldn't talk about designing because the people you're going after, you want as clients, they don't care about designing. What they do care is how design can affect their business. So things like, I don't know, how to use color as a marketing strategy. What does the different colors mean? Or how can they affect business decisions or client purchasing decisions? That stuff is interesting to people running a business. I might also write an article about rebranding and how making a rebrand or rebranding your business can actually boost your business. Maybe an interesting article on how most businesses fail when it comes to their brand. Just anything that could spark an interest in a business owner and make them think, I wonder if that affects my business. Then once I have a few of these articles written, then I would start reaching out to people. Now, again, probably at the start, I would reach out to local people in my area through LinkedIn. I can go door to door, but here's another avenue. I can reach out to them through LinkedIn and ask if they need my design services. From LinkedIn, they can click to see who I am, see my profile, see I've written these articles and go, oh, well, this guy seems to know what he's doing. Maybe I should talk to him. Are you starting to see a pattern here with all these things that I'm thinking I would do? I would ask my family and friends to refer me. I would ask the Chamber of Commerce members if they need your services. I would ask printers and design agencies and supply shops to see if they need my help. I would contact the tourism board and their members and ask them. I would attend networking events wearing a t-shirt, asking people if they need a designer. And I would go door to door, asking people if they need help. And I would reach out on LinkedIn, again, asking if they need a designer. It all comes down to the ask. When you're in the growing stages of your business, you can't simply sit back and wait for clients to come. Sure, that may happen later, but not at the early stages. I've been in business for 14 years, and that's why I can sit back and wait for my phone to ring, and I'm constantly busy because of the referrals, the networks, the client loyalty I've built up over the years. But when you're starting, you don't have that. You have to persistently go out and ask people if they know of anyone who can use your services. Now, I know that seems like a daunting task, and I'll be honest, I'm glad I don't have to do that right now. But if I was starting from scratch, that is exactly what I would do. I would do whatever it takes and ask as many people as I can to help grow my business. Now, in looking back at the episode I did, episode 146, where I talked about a look back and a look ahead, in that episode, I mentioned how many clients I worked with in 2018. Well, I want you to keep in mind that you don't need that many. I mentioned, I forget how many, 27 clients or something I worked with. You don't need that many to start off with. Way back in it was 2005 I started my business, 2006 that I went full-time with it. When I quit my job at the print shop and decided to go full-time with my own business in 2006, I had less than 10 regular clients. And those clients that I had was enough for me to get started and grow my business, to feel comfortable, to generate revenue, and to grow from there. That's the way it is. It snowballs. You get those initial clients, and then those clients will refer people. If they're happy with your services, they'll pass on your name. And that's how now every client I get is through referral because of a previous client that was very happy with my services. There's no way that I would have clients in Scotland and Australia and Hong Kong and Japan, and I can't even think of where else I have clients, not to mention all over the US. There's no way I would have those clients today if it wasn't for word of mouth referrals. I don't have a website, so they're not finding me online, and I'm not advertising in those places. It's all because of what I've built up over the past 14 years. And all of that came down to me starting off my business with that handful of clients initially. And the same can happen to you. You only need a small number of regular clients in order to sustain you at first and help you grow from there. So that's what I would do. If I had to start my design business from scratch in today's market, I would build myself a website. Then I would reach out to family and friends. I would join my Chamber of Commerce and reach out to those members. I would then contact printers and design agencies, sign companies, trophy shops, and so forth around my area and ask if they need help. I would then reach out to the tourism bureau, theater companies, and I didn't even mention even your local municipality. The local government sometimes has a list of businesses, or you can reach out to the municipality itself, the city, the township, the county, whatever, wherever you live. Reach out to them. You never know. Then I would attend networking events and try to spread the word. And once again, a t-shirt that just says, I'm a designer, let's talk. Whether it's a web designer or a graphic designer, whatever, it does work. Then at that point, if I still needed to find clients, I would pick a district in my area and concentrate on them. I would go door to door, meet people, introduce myself. And then finally, I would try to leverage LinkedIn. Write a few articles that I thought were good. They don't have to be long articles, but just as long as you're precise to the point and stuff makes sense. And then reach out to people, and you never know when that will pay off. It all comes down to asking. Now, I hope that if you are still fairly new to running a design business, whether you're just starting off or you're thinking of starting one, or your business has only been around for a year or two or such, and you're trying to grow, well, I hope that this episode gave you some motivation and some ideas of what you could try right now in order to grow your business. Because yes, I'm way beyond this, and there are so many other designers that are way beyond this, but we all originally started in the same place that you are. We all started with the idea of running a design business, of getting that first client and get the ball rolling. And I'm sure that if you stick with it, you don't give up, if you persevere, I'm sure you'll do fine as well. I would love to know what strategies you would use. If you had to restart your business from scratch today, what strategies would you use to get the ball rolling? Let me know by leaving a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 149. Now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Steve. It says, "Hi, Mark. You often refer to your virtual assistant who helps manage your websites on a monthly basis. Can you tell us more about using a virtual assistant and where we should look to hire one?" Well, thanks for the question, Steve. Yes, I did mention, in case you're unfamiliar with it or you're not sure what Steve's talking about, I have a virtual assistant that I use for various tasks, but her main task is I host websites for my clients. I don't just design the websites, I host most, I'd say over 90% of the websites I design, I'm also handling the hosting for. And not only the hosting, but that includes backing up the website, making sure the website's secure, and updating, making sure that WordPress, the theme, and all the plugins are kept up to date. Well, that's fine if you only have a couple of websites, but once you get several dozen websites, it becomes a real pain. It takes quite a while to go in and update all these websites on a regular basis. So I've hired a woman. She's a woman in Canada here, although she lives at the other side of the country, the other end of the country than what I do. And once a month, she will go in, and I have a product called iTheme Sync, which all my websites are listed there. So she goes into that. I gave her access to that. And from there, she can update all the core, which is WordPress. She can update the themes, and she can update all the plugins on every one of my client websites. So I don't have to do that. That's a task that I can take off my plate and forget about. She sends me an email once a month to say, I've updated all the website, everything went okay, and that's it. And then I pay her for it. So that's one job that a virtual assistant can do. Now, Steve, you asked about more info about using a virtual assistant. Think of a virtual assistant as a virtual employee. Call them VA from this point forth. With a VA, you get the benefits of having an employee, but without all the burdens of actually having an employee. What I mean by that is you don't have to have office space. If you had an employee, you might have to provide a place for them to work. You would probably have to supply their equipment for them to use. You may have to pay them expenses. You may have to pay, taxes or whatever, depending on your government. You may have to pay insurances for them. All that stuff that you would have to pay for an actual employee, you don't have to do that with virtual assistant. And the virtual assistant is just like an employee in that they can take your overflow of work off your shoulders. In my case, my virtual assistant handles all my websites, the updates, because it's something easy to do and I don't have to do it. I don't have to spend whatever amount of time it would take me to do it. I just let her do it. Now, that's the task that I've mentioned many times on the podcast that I use her for, but there are other things that I use her for as well. I've asked her to do research for me. For example, I asked her at one point, I was trying to get in and talk at some colleges and universities, some design schools in Ontario. I asked my virtual assistant to find the head of every design department at every school in Ontario and get me their email address. So instead of me going to every single website, finding this information, I just assigned it to her. And then she supplied me with an Excel spreadsheet that had, here's the school, here's the person you should be contacting, here's their contact information. It was so easy. So I paid her to do that. She can do research. I've had a VA do research for blog posts I've written before. A very popular blog post on the Resourceful Designer site is 21, I forget what it's called, 21 stock photo sites every designer should know of or something like that. Well, there was some information I needed to know about each stock photo site, like whether they were free, if not, how much the membership was. Well, instead of me doing that, I just had my virtual assistant do that. I had her go to each one. I gave her a list of all the sites I wanted to review, and she went and gathered all the information I needed. So I didn't have to do that. She saved me time. So instead of me using that time that I could be designing something at whatever my price is per hour, she did it and charged me much, much less. So I actually made money because I was able to design stuff and earn money during that time. And that's the great thing about a VA is, first of all, they work with you in order to help you succeed. They want to help you because the more they're helping you, the more work you're going to give them. But you only pay them for the actual time they spend working on your project. So unlike an employee that you're paying them when they're going to the washroom, you're paying them when they're emptying the trash or sweeping the floor, a VA, you only pay them when they're actually working on the job. Now, if you want to know some of the tasks you can do, there's all sorts of stuff. You can get VAs that have all sorts of skills. There are some that are designers. I know some designers act as VAs and they'll do some stuff, but you can get VAs to help with word processing, maybe formatting. Like if you have a very long book that you need formatted, instead of you doing it, you can have a VA do that. You can use a VA for proofreading. There's some of them that offer that sort of service. So if you write something up or do a website, you can have a VA just read everything, make sure everything's okay. Some of them provide translation services. If you have to translate stuff on a regular basis, sometimes it's good to have somebody that you can call up, and that would be like a virtual assistant. Some people will just say it's a contractor or that, but most contractors are like virtual assistants if they're helping you. In my case, website updates, some virtual assistants will handle social media for you. You can also get some, I know people that use them for email, that instead of going through all their email, they have a virtual assistant sift through their email so that they only get the most important ones. The VA will itemize stuff like this one is important, this one you can look at later, and this one is not so important. You can get to it whenever you have time. And I know some people that swear by that. So there are so many different things you can do with a VA. Just think of them again as an employee with a professional skill set. And the thing is with VA, instead of having one employee and you're asking him to do or her to do so many different things, you can have different VAs that have different tasks. So if you have one that does proofreading, and then you have another one that can handle email, you have another one that can handle website updates and that, whatever their specialty is, you can have multiple VAs doing different things. Now, you asked where you can get VAs. You can get them all over the place. I've heard of people using friends and family, getting their brother, their sister, their kids, their nieces, their nephews, their aunts, their uncles, just getting them to help out. That would be similar to having a VA. I had a project once where I can't even remember what it was, but I had my daughter do it for me. I say virtual. She was living at home, but she had her own laptop. And I basically said, okay, here's a bunch of files in Dropbox. Can you handle this for me? And she did, and I paid her for it. So in a way, that's almost a virtual assistant there. Now, where you can look, I can tell you that I found my virtual assistants through a website called Canadian AVA, which is the Canadian Association of Virtual Assistants. But that site is actually a sister site. They're part of the Global Alliance of Virtual Assistants, and that's at globalava.org. And what I like about them is, first of all, they have virtual assistants all around the world, but they kind of vet the virtual assistants. A lot of places they'll advertise them, but it's just anybody can put their name in. This one here actually vets and makes sure that the people actually have the skills that they're advertising they have. So that's why I kind of like them. Because I'll be honest, my virtual assistant, she charges me $25 an hour, and I know I can get a virtual assistant for less expensive than that if I went overseas. But I wanted somebody in Canada, and I wanted somebody that was working. She's not in the same time zone as I am, but she is working similar. She's only 2 hours off from me. So that's why I choose her. Now, I have used people for other things. It was more one-off projects. I've hired people on Upwork. It was Elance at the time, but I've hired people from there to do certain tasks. So basically, a VA could be any sort of contractor that you are hiring to help you out. It could be an illustrator. It could be, as I said, a proofreader. It could be a developer. If you're doing websites and you need a developer, that could be considered a VA as well. A VA is anybody that you think is kind of acting like an employee, but is not an actual employee. So a contractor, if you will. So that's how I use VAs. Now, if you go on to the Global Alliance of Virtual Assistants website, globalava.org, they have a whole list of different tasks that you can do. And you can look through there and see what VAs are offering. Some VAs offer a whole bunch of stuff, and some VAs are offering a specific task. And you can get professionals. There are lawyers out there that are offering VA services because you need legal advice. So you can have a VA that is a lawyer or a paralegal, or there's all sorts of stuff. People are offering their services. So I highly suggest that if you are running a business, it's something to look into, something to consider. And you may think, well, I don't necessarily have the money for that. And that's the way I thought at first. But then I realized that there's a lot of things that I was doing that if I would have been spending that time designing, I could be making money. I was actually wasting money by doing them, but they were tasks that needed to be done. So I was a lot better off paying somebody a lower amount for them to do it, and then me using that time to earn more money. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question, Steve, and I hope that you give it a try. Check out these websites or just do a search online for virtual assistant. There's tons and tons of places that offer them, but those were the two, the Canadian Association of Virtual Assistants at canadianava.org or the Global Alliance of Virtual Assistants at globalava.org are the two that I'm familiar with and that I've hired from before. So thank you very much for your question. Now, I would love to answer your question in a future episode of the podcast. Head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and fill out the form there to submit yours. Now, before I go, I want to read another iTunes review I got. This one came in from Mr. Adam in the USA. It says, my all-time favorite podcast. Oh, wow. It says, I came across this podcast at the perfect time. I've been doing web design and graphic design as a sole gig for nearly 5 years after learning my skills through the School of Hard Knocks. I recently decided to take the dive and go all in with my business, ending a 14-year law enforcement career. As soon as I listened to the podcast the first time, I became hooked. And in just 4 weeks, I've listened to over 50 episodes. Mark delivers information in a laid-back and sometimes quirky way that is relevant and useful to anyone who is starting or already has their own graphic or web design business. The insight I've gained listening to Mark's podcast and reading his 4-week marketing boost has given me so many ideas for my business and has undoubtedly saved me time, money, and aggravation. Thank you, Mark, for an amazing podcast. I now have a sense of confidence about moving into my business full-time next month, and I am blessed to have several months' wait list of clients. I also have Mark to thank for introducing me to the world of print brokering, which has added a wealth of opportunity and value for my business. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much for that great review. If you're wondering about print brokering, that was back in episode 49, where I talked about print brokering to supplement your graphic design business. And if you want to listen to that episode, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 49, or just search back through whatever app you're using to listen to podcasts and find it, episode 49. So thank you very much for that lovely review. I think that brings me up to date. I've got no more reviews after this one. So If you want to leave me a review, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you to the iTunes store in your country where you can leave me a review. Now, before I go, I just want to remind you that Resourceful Designer is free and it's out there for everyone. So if you have a designer friend or know of any designers or belong to a design group, I would be forever grateful if you shared the podcast with them. Let them know that it's available everywhere podcasts can be found, including on Spotify. They can also download the app via the Apple App Store or the Android Store and listen to every single episode. So that's it for this week. I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge, something that can help you grow or start your design business. It was an interesting thing to think back and figure out what I would do if I had to start my business from scratch today. So I hope I helped. I'll be back with you next week. Until then, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.